This is Zeb again, and this week I am reviewing Baltimore and Ohio. This is a train board game made by Eagle Games. This has actually become one of my favorite board games of the new year. It's a pretty intensive train game. If you like Ticket to Ride, this is kind of the opposite of that in terms of complexity and resource management and everything that goes with it. What you get in the game is a hexagonal abstract map, and this is of the eastern and central United States. So you start on the eastern seaboard here, and it goes out as far as St. Louis and Chicago. You have money that you use to manage your railroad companies as well as to buy capital in other companies. And then you have the companies themselves. And you'll notice that certain companies have more cubes than other ones. For example, this company, New York, New Haven, and Hartford, has just 4 cubes, whereas Chesapeake and Ohio has 22. So certain companies can build longer lines. They start each in a unique place depending on where they are. For example, Pennsylvania starts in Pittsburgh because it's a Pennsylvanian company originally. The goal of the game is to become the wealthiest when the end conditions are met. So either when the most advanced train has been built or when somebody's stock reaches a value of $375, that's the end of the game. So depending on the number of players, people start with a certain amount of money and they have the option to buy stock in one of the 6 starting companies. You can buy, in a typical game you'll start with around $300, $250. So you can buy 3 or 4 stocks, and usually you can choose the price of the stock as well. It starts at 55, 60, or 66. So you can choose whether or not you want your stock to be more valuable so you can buy more, or less valuable so you can buy more, or more valuable because you want it to be worth more at the end of the game. You can also buy stock in other people's companies, and the goal of the game isn't really to build the best company, it's to build the best portfolio. So you want to be investing in multiple different companies because somebody else's success can also become your success thereby. So in a given turn, players can sell stock and buy stock. You can sell as many stocks as you want and receive the list price. So if I have 4 stocks worth $55, I can sell them for $220. That will then correspondingly drop the value of the stock. There's an incremental graph as to where the values are here. You can buy once from one company on your turn, and it goes around in orders. So you'll go through multiple, basically, turns of this in a given round. So on my turn, I could sell 2 stocks of one company. My friends go around, I sell again or buy something. It goes until everybody passes. So you can play the market to try to see what the most profitable stocks are. You can sell off stocks to screw your friends so that their values just absolutely plummet. There are all sorts of dirty financial tricks you can play with this game. Once you put money into your company, the money you spend on the stock goes into the treasury, and use the money in the treasury to buy capital equipment. The capital equipment are these cards right here. They determine 2 things. The number on top determines the technology level that you're playing with, so technology level 1. That will determine the maintenance cost, so how much it costs to maintain your given line. It also determines how many cities you can service, and servicing cities, which are here, they're all the named locations. That's how you make money in the game. So if I had 2 1-value train cards, I could service 2 cities. You determine how much they're worth by the numbers right here. So there are 6 for the 6 different technology levels, 20, 30. Some cities become more valuable, some cities become less. For example, what city is this right here? Washington starts out at 20, which is reasonably profitable, but it doesn't appreciate very high. So it's all right early game, but you want to expand elsewhere because it's just not as profitable as, say, Pittsburgh, which by the end of the game is worth 60, or Chicago, which is worth 100. You want to be expanding into really high-value cities. So once everybody's gone through the market phase, people buy capital equipment and start placing cubes down to determine where their lines go. So this is what the game might look like once you're a few rounds into it. You've got these cubes represent the lines you can lay, and you're trying to connect as many cities as possible profitably. You're also trying to expand into coal fields. Now, the advantage of coal is that it's just a flat payment you make. With a city, you actually have to have a carrying capacity that you have to have enough trains, basically, to service the city. With coal, that doesn't exist. If you put a space here, you pick up the coal, and you just make $40 a turn. It's basically just pure profit to you. So there's an incentive to move into these very expensive areas. The number on the bottom of the hexes that indicates how much it would cost to move in there. So certain areas are very cheap. Presumably this is a plain, whereas this is more mountainous territory, so it costs a lot more to try to move through it. In a given turn, so if I have, let's say, a 3 tech card, and I'm Chesapeake and Ohio, which is the yellow company right here, I can service up to 3 cities what's in tech level 3, so I would make 20, 30, and 20. That would be $70 basically from that, assuming I don't have any coal or anything else. Then I would subtract the maintenance cost, and that's my net profitability. So in a given turn, you do 1 market phase where you buy and sell stocks, and then 2 phases of building. So I could move into there if I had $100 in the treasury company, or the company treasury. My friends would go, then I could do it again. Just keep moving on like that. At the end, once you've finished with your actions, you determine your net and your gross profits in a given turn. So you'll say, okay, I made $70 this turn. You keep track of it on this chart here. So if I was at 40 before and I netted 50, my net profitability goes up. My stock value on here will then jump, so it would go from, say, 66 to 74, and that would be the end of the turn. Maintenance costs are kept down here, and the game ends when one of 2 things happens. Either the 6 card comes out, which is the most expensive kind of train you can get, or when somebody's stock gets to 375, which I have to admit, I thought my friends and I never got anywhere close, maybe just because we kept screwing each other the entire time. The little cards are the stocks. Each company has 10, so it represents basically a 10% ownership in a company. You can have as many as you can buy. So if on a given, over the course of the game, I accumulate 3 in Baltimore and Ohio, 4 in Chesapeake and Ohio, and a couple somewhere else, those are worth whatever the current stock value is. So there's an incentive to buy into other people's companies because even though it helps them because you're putting money in their treasury, you're also, every time they're paying, you make money off of it. Companies make money in one of 2 different ways. Companies can either choose to pay everything into the treasury, in which case all the money they make from servicing cities goes right back into the railroad treasury, or they can choose to pay dividends. And what happens then, you take the total, the net profitability, and you divide it according to who has the shares, and the remainder goes into the company treasury. So if I had, let's say I own Chesapeake and Ohio, I have 3 shares, one of my friends has 1 share, and then the remaining 6 shares aren't controlled by anybody. I would make 30% of what was made that turn. My friend would make 10. The remaining 60 would go into the company itself. It is important to keep in mind when playing this game that you have to stick with the right strategies. The way my friends and I played it the first time we sat down is we just focused on our own companies without really buying into much other stock. And then certain companies do seem to have an advantage. Companies that can pick up coal easily. I'm thinking of Pennsylvania specifically, although Chesapeake and Ohio can pull it off too. They can make money really fast and just become unstoppable powerhouses if you don't play the financial and stock elements of it correctly. Because in a given turn, you can sell people's stock to drive down the value, and you can do it several times because you can sell 1 stock, go around, sell stock again, go around. You can just absolutely tank somebody's value that way. Now, of course, you're selling off your own assets in the process, but if you're really trying to stop somebody from getting too powerful, that's a great way to do it. Especially because when you sell stocks, they go in the orphan stock area right here. So if I sell off 2 of these and they end up there, that means that every turn they go down 2 in value. So red will go from 60 to 50 to 41. The value just absolutely tanks as a result. It really hurts the company. Then, of course, the flip side of that, if a company is doing really well, you buy into it because it's possible to take over a company. If Pennsylvania player only has 3 stocks bought in his company and he's doing well, I can buy 4 and take control of it from him. Or I could buy 3 and just make sure that however much he cashes in, I cash in. It's possible to play shrewdly financially that way, and you absolutely have to, because you can manage multiple companies, you can make sure that whenever anybody's making money, you're getting a slice of it. So this is one of my few criticisms of this game, is that the board is a little ugly, unfortunately. I had a friend who described it as being very Microsoft Office 97. It's just not pretty to look at. I could see it actually kind of being a turnoff to somebody who's not really into number crunching board games. So maybe it needs a little bit of a makeover. That said, while it may not be pretty to look at, it is well organized. Everything you have out, I mean, it's at least there. It's easy to keep track of everything. So the game does get points for being well organized, well put together, especially with a game that's complicated. You really need that because once you've built your really big rail lines and everybody controls 2 companies, then you're going to be servicing 10 cities at a time. My other complaint, you really need a calculator for this game. I kind of wish it had come with tables or charts so you could keep track of how much money you're making, because your nets could be 840 in a given turn, and you have to crunch all the numbers and try to figure out the most profitable way to service all your cities. So it does get a little math heavy towards the end. If you're not really into that, that might be a turnoff for this game. I fell in love with it, but that probably says more about me as a gamer than anything else. The game is really well made in terms of how it was organized. The boxes, the packaging is well put together. They provide lots of bags, which is a small complaint, but with a game with this many components, especially small ones, it's really good to have it all easily organized and well put together. It is such a relief to be able to just pack this thing up quickly. The rulebook gets special points from me because it's very short. It's very concisely organized. It's easy to follow. For how complicated the game's numbers are, the rules actually aren't that difficult to follow, which was, again, it's a comfort because this is a long board game. The first time my friends and I played it, we went about 3.5 hours before we finally got to the end. Now, granted, we had such a good time during that we actually debated starting another game immediately afterwards. So I like to think of that as an endorsement of how good this game is. That said, it's not a quick play, and it's good the rules are concisely organized, or it would really bog down fast. For me personally, this was a 9. For other people, it may not be as enjoyable, but I absolutely loved this game.